In this video, Simon Sinek explains that when we treat others with dignity, we earn trust. We want people not to just fit in the culture, but to be additive and contribute to the culture.
Let's be crystal clear what a trusting team is. We've all been on one in the past, and I hope you're on one right now. We've all been on trusting teams where we have psychological safety to say out loud, I made a mistake, or I need help, or I don't know, or I've got some stuff at home and I'm struggling and it's affecting my work product, and I need help, without any fear of humiliation, retribution, or that'll affect your promotability. That's what being on a trusting team is, and that's what we have to build for the people who work for us. Not being on a trusting team, we've also all been there, unfortunately, where we're afraid to say, I made a mistake. We would never say, I don't know something or don't understand something. We would never ask for help because we're either going to get humiliated publicly or we're going to affect our promotability. And the opportunity to build trusting teams is what leadership is all about. That's where the strength of culture comes from. So yeah, it's essential to building any kind of business, short-term or long-term, but definitely a long-term company for sure. And all the stuff you talk about, challenging and pushing boundaries, means if you're pushing boundaries and you're thinking big, you're going to fall a lot. It happens. There's no such thing as innovation without experimentation, and experimentation inherently requires failure. And I think a lot of companies that are too finite-minded, they fear failure. They fear, well, let me restate. I actually don't like the word failure. You hear it a lot, which is, we have a fail-fast culture, I think the problem with the word failure is it's like the word cancer, which is there's a huge difference between stage 4 liver cancer and melanoma, and a mild melanoma. But they're both called cancer. That's the problem. And there are failures which are minor and overcomable, and there are failures that are catastrophic. But the problem is they're both called failure. I like the word falling. Failure we should work very hard to avoid. But falling, we should encourage because you can get back up. I know of one large gaming company, and I love this, that they don't have parties when they hit their goals. They have parties when they fail. They have parties when a game is a complete blowout, because they're trying to acculturize being comfortable with missing a goal or complete abject failure. And they have a party, and they have their own champagne, which it has a label on it. Their own label, I think it's called, they're called lessons. And on the back of the champagne bottle after the party, they actually write the lessons they learned from the failure. And so it's a company that's very comfortable with failing, which means they try again very easily, and they're super innovative. So creating a culture where falling is part of the game, I think is wonderful. It has to be celebrated. I love it.
The most important details in this text are that treating someone with dignity has nothing to do with whether you are guilty or innocent, and that the way people respond to the uniform it treated with dignity is different than one they are not. Additionally, law enforcement is conducted in a way that considers the longevity of the value of the uniform, the relationship of those who wear the uniform in public, and how much the public is willing to help us if a crime is committed.
So one of the things that I think is misunderstood about leadership is that it's not just from the top. Leaders have to set the environment for sure, and leaders have to lead by example for sure. But this is our organization. This is your organization. Like nobody gets to sit on the sidelines and be like, all right, what have you done for me lately, right? I don't even mind negativity. People are like, oh my goodness, that person's such a negative Nelly. But because sometimes negative people who are in the fight and they're still willing they show up every day, they're great. It's when people are negative and they just stand on the sides and throw stones. And I don't mean like, bring me solutions. That's not what I mean. I mean just like you're in it. You're in the scrum and you're willing to be a part of it. So like you have to come to work here every day. There's a great story when Gordon Bethune took over Continental Airlines, which existed prior to United. They merged. It was a terrible airline. It was the worst rated airline in the country for every metric. And one of the things that was bad was the planes were always dirty. And the customers would always complain, and they would always get yelled at by management, clean the planes for the customer. The customers are complaining. And when Gordon Bethune showed up, he said, forget about the customer. They're on the plane, they're off the plane in 3 hours. You're going to have to do 4 more flights before your shift is done. Why don't you clean the plane for yourselves? Like, this is your office. Like, why don't you keep it nice for yourself? In fact, there's a funny statistic between UPS trucks and US Postal Service trucks, which is US Postal Service trucks, I think they only last about 2 years before they have to be replaced. And UPS trucks last something like 5 years before they have to get replaced. UPS, they clean their trucks every single day, and US Postal Service trucks, they clean their trucks once a week. Because when you give somebody something really nice to work in, they look after it. And so, like, it becomes incumbent upon all of us to say, this is when we're talking about leadership, which is, if you see someone struggling, go to them. If you see someone who's unhappy, maybe, go to them. If somebody's stuck in a false narrative, maybe help them change their narrative. Give them a safe space to feel heard. Sometimes people just need to empty their bucket. Some people sometimes just need to vent and get it all out, and then they're actually fine. And sometimes what we do by mistake is try and interrupt them, correct the facts, fix the problem. And so we can be that. Like, you can be that for the people you work with. That's a huge part of it. Like, taking responsibility for the organization in which you work. Yes, leadership does bear some responsibility, of course, but I think everybody in the organization is included in that as well. We want people not to just fit the culture, but to be additive and contribute to the culture.
The most important details in this text are the trust is built up through the combination of small things such as saying, I believe you and I trust you. This builds trust within an organization and the community, allowing them to pull from the trust bank when they need to make a withdrawal. It also allows them to say to the community that they are good and deserve their trust. Leadership is not just from the top leaders, but from everyone in the organization, and it is important to set the environment and lead by example. There is a great story of when Gordon Bethune took over Continental Airlines, which was the worst rated airline in the country for every metric, and he told the customers to clean the planes for themselves. He also pointed out that there is a funny statistic between Upstrack and the US Postal Service truck, which is that UPS trucks only last about 2 years before they have to be replaced, while US Postal Service trucks last something like 5 years and clean their trucks every single day, and US Postal Service trucks clean trucks once a week. Leadership is important to take responsibility for the people they work with and provide them with a safe place to vent and get it out, not just to fit the culture, but to the additive and contribute to it. Everyone in the organization is included in this responsibility. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. For more videos, like these and please subscribe.